5 avoidance tactics that keep you stuck. I'm Keeley, psychotherapist with a passion for unlocking potential. Now, this video is all about avoidance. We're very much aware about depression and anxiety, but there are a range of factors that feed into those conditions that don't often get the attention that they need. For example, avoidance is a massive factor that can impact on our health and well-being. When we continuously avoid a problem, when you pretend to yourself and lie to yourself that the situation isn't as it is, you are doing yourself a great disservice, and it's highly likely that whilst avoiding dealing with a particular problem may give you short-term gain, in the long term there will be pain. Remember, I make 2 videos every week designed to inspire thought and encourage you to unlock your potential. To get these videos first, do consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. The first avoidance tactics that people employ is over-explanation. We all have that friend who can talk the hind legs off a deer, going on about the same old issue again and again. So over-explanation, talking about the problem and not actually doing anything about it, is an avoidance tactic. And whilst I said before, that may give you short-term gain, but in the long run, if you don't deal with the fact that, for example, your son is disrespectful to you and talks to you in a derogatory way, if you kind of keep explaining that away, then that will be a problem for you. That's the first avoidance tactics that people often employ, is over-explanation. The second avoidance tactic is denial. This is where you bury your head in the sand and you act as if the problem does not exist. Now, this we have to be very careful of, because it can also be linked to disassociation. And if that is the case, then definitely get professional help. But if you are someone who is in total denial about a situation, it's important to understand that that is a tactic that will help you to cope in the present. But in the long run, if you're constantly in denial about the fact that, I know, for example, you're going to lose your job and you're not taking steps to do something about it, then you're going to be creating more problems for yourself. The third avoidance tactic to be mindful of is procrastination. That's when you find everything else to do rather than dealing with the situation. Now, for me personally, I know I have to be careful about my phone, because sometimes I can end up spending too much time on social media when actually I've got bigger tasks that I need to be contending with. But because I might not want to deal with them, I end up just idling my time away on these platforms. And so procrastination is something that you need to be mindful of. It's a form of avoidance where you don't confront the big issue. The fourth avoidance tactic I'm going to talk about today is comparison. That's when you continuously compare yourself to somebody else in a better position and use that as an excuse to not take steps to deal with your own issues. And if you continuously compare yourself, you might be somebody who compares yourself to your older sibling. I know that that was something that I did, and often it meant that I didn't value my own merit, my own worth, because I was continuously looking at her and at times wishing I could have been like that. Now, when we continuously compare ourselves to somebody else, it's important to know that we deliberately choose somebody who's in a better position. Because if we were chose to somebody who wasn't in a greatest position, the comparison would not work. So it's also important to understand when we compare, we deliberately select someone in a higher position than us in order to somehow idolize them, worship them, in order for us to not take action to deal with the problems in our life. Lastly, the fifth avoidance tactic that people often employ is blaming others. It's not me. Oh, poor me story. When we blame others, we don't have to take responsibility for our own action. It's not your fault. You have to blame others. When we blame others, it lets us off the hook. And in doing so, we're highly likely to develop a victim mentality and sometimes a kind of mindset of entitlement as well. Because if it's poor me, then potentially you may feel that you're entitled to something from other people to remedy the pain that you believe you're in. Now, the more avoidance tactics you employ in your life will mean that you develop self-deceit. When we develop self-deceit, we then move on to develop an inner conflict. And when we develop an inner conflict, it's because you're trying to create an alternative reality rather than face up to the situation that you're in. In the long run, this causes us more problems, or it may mean that we have to develop more avoidance tactics to keep us in the uncomforts of that comfort zone. When we start to let go of our avoidance tactics and deal with the problem in hand, it does take us out of our comfort zone. And we know that that is not always comfortable, but it's when we leave the comfortable zone, but it's when we leave the comfort zone that we begin to expand and grow. And it is through that process that true change comes about. Those are the 5 avoidance tactics that often cause people more problems. I hope they may be of benefit to you. If they are, do consider sharing. I am Keeley Taverner, psychotherapist with a passion for unlocking potential. Do take care of you, because if you don't, who will?